Just before we start, I had somebody tell me that the panel before us had a lot of F-bombs that were dropped, and so we don't have any bets going on here, and so we'll keep this panel on the up and up. So the title of the panel is Real-Time Buying in the Real World. So when we talk about the real world, we actually handpicked some of the top professionals in the space, and so we'll hear their stories. Right next to me, we have Nuno Andre, Sapient Nitro. So Nuno is a media director. He runs a large group of media planners and buyers. Hearing the fact that he is from Sapient Nitro, we can probably safely assume that he has a search background, which is very probably natural for a move into real-time buying. So welcome, Nuno. Next to Nuno, we have James Green. James is the CEO of a 5-year startup, Magnetic. So interesting little anecdote on James. James used to work at Pixar, and he actually used to work for Steve Jobs. And quote from James, or as he would put it, that he taught Steve Jobs absolutely nothing about marketing. But Steve Jobs taught him that he should go out and start his own company, and he's never looked back. So welcome, James. And then we have Jenna Umbriana from Hill Holiday. So Jenna is the platform lead, and she's been doing this for 3 years. She is responsible for managing and developing their platform, or what I would call it is a trading desk, and we'll have a deeper discussion on that. Jenna is not new to panels. She, in fact, has spoken at BIMA, Mix, and just yesterday at Mathmen, and has been interviewed by Ad Exchanger, so welcome, Jenna. We next have Victor Wong from PaperG. So Victor Wong is the CEO and co-founder of a 2-year startup. Is that? Couple years. So Victor had a tough decision to make 2 years ago. He was recruited by a top investment bank, but he chose real-time buying instead and probably made a lot more money doing that. So welcome, Victor. And then finally we have Ming Wu, last but not least, from Acuan Omnicom. And Ming is the VP of Trading, and he's been doing this for quite some time. He's been doing this 5 years at Yahoo. He actually launched the Right Media Exchange out in Asia in 2007. So welcome, Ming. Excellent, excellent. So when I think about real-time buying, media planners and media buyers have thousands of decisions between ad exchanges, between portals, between ad networks. And they're pressured by clients in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. But I still sense that there's a lot of confusion around what is real-time buying, right? So what does it mean to an organization? So Ming, I know you and I had a brief discussion about that. So maybe you can tell me, what does real-time buying mean to you, and how do you use it within your organization?
Not sure you asked me that in the prep session. Where are my notes? Well, I think if you look back at where I started at Yahoo, you mainly bought from 3 people, the portals, and you got to pick where you could buy them. Obviously today, this whole conference, you can pick the impressions in real time. So what I'm seeing is the same buyers that used to buy premium from us in the past, and we could, as head of pricing, I had to stop cannibalization. So people who take their $10 CPMs and try to buy them on the exchange for much less, sometimes $1.50. And so I think the whole industry has become much more educated, and they are just realizing you can buy the same audiences in real time that you're reaching on premium. And yes, the frequency curve's a little bit different, but a lot of the masked inventory out there is masked because they are premium pubs looking to liquidate inventory that their sales forces haven't sold, and RTB is a very efficient way to manage yield for them.
Excellent, excellent. James, what does real-time buying mean to you?
So Magnetic does search retargeting, so we capture search data and then we marry it with the exchanges. So real-time buying for us is the ability to look at an ad impression as it's about to be served and say, is this person interested in a Ford F-150 truck? And if so, let's show them a Ford ad. That's real-time buying.
Now, there's a lot of discussion. So if you look at the acronym RTB, a lot of times it's used interchangeably with real-time bidding. So I know James and you and I briefly spoke about, well, you can still do real-time buying, but the price is fixed. So are we all talking about dynamic pricing, or are we talking about just reaching the right audience at the right time? So go ahead. Yeah, James? Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I think there is a confusion among a lot of people about the difference between real-time buying and what a bidder is. So you can go to an exchange and you can say, I want to buy these people in real time, as I just described. But then a bidder actually enables you to change that pricing dynamically in real time and say, you know, is this worth it or is this not? And I think there aren't actually that many people, or not as many as you would expect, using a bidder in a sophisticated manner. A lot of people are plugging into an exchange and sort of setting a price and running, set it and forget it. It's more technically sophisticated to use a bidder, and theoretically with a bidder you can change any data point that's causing you to buy media at any point in time. So that becomes very interesting if you have learned enough about your audience or your marketplace to be able to, you know, scientifically drive conversions, and that's the difference between real-time buying versus a bidder.
If I could just to follow up on that, I think you know, rules-based buying is one way to go. I think, as you were saying, if you have the opportunity to bid in real time, you're actually bidding on the individual impression, so you can designate a higher CPM for that impression as opposed to another impression that you may not even choose to bid on. So I mean, real-time buying is light years ahead of ad networks, but I think real-time bidding is the next step, and I think, like you said, there's not a lot of companies actually doing that right now, and some say they are, and I think the performance really speaks volumes when you actually test some of these companies that are doing that and you don't see the performance you would expect.
Excellent. Now, so do you need a trading desk? Right, so a lot of agencies are building out these trading desks that would actually execute some of these real-time buys or even real-time bids. And do advertisers only need to partner with agencies that are building these trading desks out? Jenna, could you answer that for me?
No bias.
Yeah, so we have a great relationship with Cadreon, who's the IPG trading desk. We also partner very closely with a lot of demand-side platforms and technology companies directly to facilitate our buying. So I think some of the value that a trading desk can bring is, you know, these are really smart guys, just probably like a lot of the tech people in the space. Their consultancy can be hugely helpful. And for people that may not be looking to build, like Hill Holiday's not looking to build from scratch, they can be a great resource.
Yeah, I think it's an expensive proposition. At Sapien Nitro, we don't use a trading desk. We partner with a couple of DSPs to do a lot of our real-time buying. And like I mentioned, it's very expensive to run an RTB platform. If you can imagine bidding on an impression basis throughout, you know, that's billions of impressions on any given day. You know, the processing power that you would need to actually do that is immense. So I think, you know, as I mentioned before, we partner with a couple of DSPs and we test them for different publishers. And based on results, those are the ones we continue to use.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that you have to either invest in the people side or in the technology side. So my company deals with about 20,000 small, medium-sized advertisers. And the only way we can do that through RTB basically is if we programmatically are optimizing the results and we're not using people necessarily on DSPs and managing results. So we invested upfront in hiring the right people to build the right technology on top of the exchanges to do that. Because otherwise you need to have the consultants kind of sit there, analyze the data, look at that, and then translate that to other campaigns. And that's efficient at big ad spend, but when you're talking about smaller campaigns on a local level or regional level, it's not worth it.
So Ming, you guys manage a trading desk. You've built a trading desk for Omnicom, is that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
So if I was a small agency and or a mid-sized agency and I went out and I traded through DSPs, would I be just as efficient as you would be if you have a trading desk in-house?
Well, I think there's a couple good points to talk about there. So one question that's first order question that comes up is, well, why don't I just get a DSP and do it myself, right? For the majority of Omnicom clients, they use us, and they're perfectly happy doing that. I think the reason is that there's probably what 6, 10, I don't know, leading DSPs out there. Maybe you can say there's the top 5 name brands that everybody knows. And what we found, we actually use them all. So we view ourselves as a systems integrator. We're not reselling any single DSP. We're not beholden to one. If you asked us to use, pick any of the top 5 Forrester DSPs out there, we will use them. And we have them integrated into our data store as well. And what I found is you can take the best operator on maybe the oldest technology, and that person will outperform somebody who's relatively new to the industry or doesn't have that quantitative math and analytics-based background using the best technology. That the technology doesn't really drive the performance. It's the person behind it. And so that's order number 1 on technology versus the people. And I think everyone here is saying the same thing. If you just think about, one of our partners told us that there's 2,000 variables that their algorithm tries to optimize to. What's the combination of all those 2,000 variables, right? And one variable is like zip code. So you multiply 2,000 by 2,000 zip codes, you're into the millions.
So you do this in real time?
The algorithm tries to, and that's the point I'm trying to illustrate is with just 4 million zip code combinations against gender, how are you going to then, how much budget do you need to try every single one out to figure out that you don't want to be doing that? And that's actually what the algorithm tries to do, but it wants to limit your risk, so it'll run 100 impressions and decides that, New York City doesn't work because they didn't get a click or they didn't get the conversion. Maybe New York City does. So you do need a human behind there to make these decisions, to work with the agency team, the end client, to understand their insights about what works for them, what psychographics, demographics, what other media strategies have worked. So that is extremely important, and I think that's why there are 6 leading DSPs, and there's a whole bunch of people in this room who do that for a living.
So let's switch gears just a little bit. Let's talk about content, what's available. So Forrester predicts in 2 to 3 years a lot more inventory, right? Arguably video, which is somewhat available now, but across the board, mobile, addressable TV, more premium buys, I guess in that sense, will be available through real-time buying. But what is available today? Is it remnant? Is it all B-class inventory, or can you actually buy premium as well? And how should clients budget? I mean, that's actually a more complex question. If I'm an advertiser, should I implicitly allocate 80% to premium or reserved, and then 20% to, or the vice versa? So,
I mean, I can kick it off. I don't want to, but just to, I mean, we deal with obviously Omnicom as some of the largest brands in the world, and the majority of them run with us. They care very much about brand safety. They want to be in clean, well-lit environments, and we're able to help them do that. I've run ads on CNBC during the middle of the day at noon. And I read CNBC a lot. I clicked on Obama's latest article, and I saw my ad there front and center, right? And that was RTB.
Yeah, and I think it depends how you define remnant, because if you define remnant as any inventory that wasn't sold by the premium sales force, then it's remnant, because clearly, CNBC tried to sell their stuff before you. But on the other hand, some of that unsold inventory, remnant's a really terrible name for it, can be fantastic. Absolutely. And the flip side of that is that there's other sites that you may not know so well that are clean and well lit, that are, my favorite, insert special interest name here, .com, that are, leaders in their particular niche. And is that remnant? They probably don't even have a sales force. So, you definitely can get ads on there. So on the one hand, it's certainly all stuff that people can't sell through another means. I mean, I think Everyone will try to sell it through the direct sales force first, and if they can't, it's available that way. But it's clearly good inventory, and more than that, what we'll see, we've seen some experiments with this already on some of the exchanges, that the media that you can buy in real time or through a bidder is becoming richer. So you think of it now, and it's mainly banners, but we're moving towards skins and interstitials, and we're powering video already. So more and more, it looks less and less like remnant and just like unsold good inventory.
So,
Yeah, I think there's a reason that some people refer to RTB as race to the bottom. And that's because it is remnant inventory, and you're slicing and dicing it multiple times over to get at that particular audience that you're trying to get to. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't possibly get a very high quality audience from RTB, and might even work out better. It likely will work better than that direct site buy when the content is really what's driving the audience, but you're actually picking a specific impression of a specific person that you're trying to target. So I think we have to rethink how we refer to remnant a little bit, because by definition it is remnant, but it could perform exceedingly well.
One thing I would add is that a lot of the discussion is about, do you split budgets by this is what I'm going to spend direct and this is what I'm spending this way. But I think that's almost like the reverse of how it should be looked at, because this is like a means to buy content or audiences that you want to get. And at the end of the day, if the client can get what they want one way or another, and that is the best way to get it, that's where the dollars should go. So if you can buy, like in the example of the CNBC placement, if that's available through an RTB means, and you're going to be able to get it and have insight and be able to react to it, that's great. If that's not available, and that's a placement that you really need or want, or you want some sort of custom integration with that content on CNBC, go direct. But it's really, at the end of the day, it's about the consumer, and it's about meeting the client's goals. The technology is a means for facilitating and helping us get to those two things.
That makes a lot of sense. So do all 5 of you have access to the same set of inventory?
Yes.
Yes. How about you guys?
Most likely.
Yeah, I would think so.
So essentially, it's the same pool is available. It's a matter of process, technology, people, strategy.
Yeah, look, I mean, so we have a few relationships, and I think everyone can do this. You can develop relationships with individual publishers that then takes you outside the realm of the exchanges. But if you're buying on an exchange, then the reality is, even on the top 5 DSPs, it's the same inventory. So unless you're actually actively going out and developing your own unique relationships with publishers, we're all buying the same stuff, or at least 85% of the time.
Yeah, I'd say where it becomes differentiated might be in situations like if you go to build out a private exchange, for example. If there's a special type of content that you want to tap into and build out that relationship and have access to it, those are where the points of differentiation come in. But as far as the open market goes, we're all probably tapping the same stuff.
So let's talk about private exchanges just a little bit. It's a little bit of a tangent, but as we become more transparent, more efficient, and more inventory becomes available on the market, the efficiencies of yesterday's are going to probably slim down quite a bit. So what if a large advertiser like P&G would come to a particular RTB and say, well, can you set up a private exchange for me and kick everybody out? And so for them, it would be beneficial. Now, the question is, are we right back where we were 10 years ago, where now we're back into this reserved buying again? Is that...
It seems to me, it's sort of building a little bit on what Jenna said earlier, that I think it'll happen the other way around. So if you're a publisher, the number one thing you want to do, other than making great content, is make money, right? So you're going to sell everything you can in the first place. And for an advertiser, if you want to embed your brand into someone else's content, there's really never going to be another better way to do it than doing some custom integration into a fantastic piece of content, whether that's online or offline, it doesn't matter. Once you've moved over to buying audiences, then trying to buy audiences on a publisher-by-publisher basis becomes silly. It just doesn't make any sense. So what publishers are starting to do, and it's not happened really, is there's a lot of different types of people buying on the exchanges. I think what publishers will do is they'll find the people who are not trying to cannibalize their own their own inventory, so are not trying to go and say, well, I served an ad on ESPN, I'm going to now resell my ESPN users somewhere else, but who actually have their own data and are just trying to find that person, it doesn't matter where they are. That's non-cannibalistic to a publisher's own sales force. So what you'll see happen is people who have their own data will be able to build relationships with publishers that are private and are not necessarily available to every Tom, Dick, and Harry on an exchange, because you don't want, again, if you're ESPN, you do not want something that's cannibalistic to your own sales force. The only stuff you want to be selling on RTB is stuff that is going to be bought in a way that's totally, that you cannot sell yourself. So I think that will be what will be exciting about exchanges. Will be those publishers building out with partners who have data.
Well, I think private exchanges are coming about because publishers are obviously concerned about pricing is falling down. I mean, they're basically putting pricing floors because there's not enough bidders. At the same time, you're right. They want to avoid cannibalization. One way to do that is effectively by going after different types of advertisers. Right. And what we're seeing is actually we're getting access to private exchanges simply because we're bringing new types of advertisers, right? So these are small, medium-sized advertisers. They could be direct response advertisers. They basically aren't necessarily the brand advertisers who want to get on a specific site. And as a result, they have to set up a separate means for accessing that inventory. So if you bring something new to the table, you can access proprietary inventory. But you have to be able to make that argument that it's a new dollar spend that they're not going to get access to otherwise.
One thing I would add, or maybe even disagree with, to shake things up, is that I think part of the private exchange like immersion is actually transparency driven, less price driven. So when you make a direct connection with a site through one piece of plumbing, that publisher knows who's buying their inventory, where, what sections of their site. It's something that they're not today easily getting from some of the open exchanges, which to them is just as important as it is on the demand side. And as far as pricing goes, I actually think what we're seeing happen is a shift to value instead of price. So it's kind of like a remonetization of inventory. We're willing to pay, like as Hail Holiday, $6, $7 for your inventory if that's what it's worth, and that's what we can get it to get a return on. And publishers want to know that too. They want to know this is the audience that you're buying, and this is what value you placed on it, because then it helps them go out and sell it for better value to them as well.
So I know you're trying to disagree with me, but I will actually agree in the sense that the reason why transparency matters, though, is because they don't want cannibalization. That's actually what it is. They want to see visibility on who's buying, so it's not Procter & Gamble coming back and paying half of what they were paying before. That's what they
friendly
really care
disagreement.
But so it's just about differentiation at the end of the day, right? So if we talk about all the technologies and what differentiates them, and now the publishers are trying to differentiate their premium inventory and trying to command a higher price for it, then what's most important? And I think James touched on it. Data, we believe, is the most important element. So we've made tremendous investments, just as much investment in data as in all of our DSP platforms. So we're ingesting data, you name it, we have that data. Blue Kai, XLA, ClearSpring, even the new stuff. And we also have the ability to track where every single Omnicom impression has run. We don't do that for all Omnicom clients, but certainly if they want to know, they can on their direct buys and their remnant buys. So with that ability to see that, and because we have the brand name of Omnicom, we can go to all these exchanges and direct publishers and piggyback that pixel. So we can then, after $1 million a month of ad spend across all digital, say, these are the audiences that you reached on your various campaigns, because we bump that $1 million up against our huge data warehouse and say, well, you reached this many men and women and these people of these income levels and these geographies, and oh, by the way, here's how many dog owners we think you hit too. Anything that they want that's available, that's combinatorially possible with third-party data, we can pull all of that together. So that all translates in real-time bidding into us being able to pay more for that impression. And if you bring it back to what's differentiating, as long as you pay more, the publisher's going to be happy. So private marketplace is a way to achieve that end by instituting floors. But personally, I think, and I don't even think our company has a view on this yet, PMPs may develop, they may not. I think that's the debate for the last 18 months. But we think that no matter what, data will allow us to win those auctions because we want to win them on behalf of our clients. And whatever's the best way possible, we think pulling all that together, which a PMP buy doesn't let you do.
We talked about this a little bit outside before coming in here, but about the whole attribution issue. But I guess my question to you, Ming, is, we have real-time bidding right now, but at what point does real-time analytics become an issue? Because a lot of times you get all these insights, but it's not real-time. So how does the decision engine make the decision to bid on a particular impression if it doesn't know whether or not that impression is going to work? Obviously, you enter into any campaign with notions about what should work, but that doesn't always pan out.
Yeah, so data loss, data integrity is huge. You can't, we're not doing those analytics in real time. I don't think anybody can, and if you can, please call me. But yeah, you certainly have to spend some money, find out what worked and what didn't. It's an iterative process, just like all of the optimizations, I think, that happen in the media world.
Excellent, excellent. So if an advertiser was to come to you, at which point would you think real-time buying is not right for them? When does it not work? Or for which campaign situations, et cetera?
So we recently lost a client who decided that the only part of digital that they wanted to advertise in was in highly impactful integrated content situations. They didn't want, they had, they wanted to be so immersed in that content they didn't, and they bought their audience by choosing the right content. And there is still a place for that in the world. And so if you decide that that's your strategy, and it's vastly more expensive and and broader reach, I don't think you can have that strategy if you're someone like Victor's clients who are relatively spending sort of $1,000 to $5,000 a month. You can't go and have a hugely immersive experience. But if you're, and I'm purposely holding back the client because I don't. But if you're this particular client was a ebook reader, and so they're all kind of big, all of them. If you've got that much money to spend, and you can be so impactful and so broad, think a la Super Bowl ads, then you don't have to buy your audience that way if everybody's going to buy your product. But if you have anything that's any more limited than that, and ebook readers, everybody wants to buy an ebook reader now. So I do think that's a smart strategy. You can reach kind of everybody. But if you've got anything narrower than that, then you should probably be seriously considering real-time bidding, because you can limit where you're spending money to the audience that's interested in you.
Yeah, at Sapient Nitro, the vast majority of what we do is direct response, but we do have some clients that are more focused on the branding aspect. And it just, for me, it doesn't make sense because a lot of these clients are more interested in doing, high impact, rich media, video. So although those capabilities are starting to become more real for that type of media, it's still, if you go do a direct site buy, you're really going for impact as opposed to audience in that situation. So I believe that's a situation where it just doesn't make sense to go the RTB route.
So you guys brought up measurement or at least analytics. Is everybody here optimizing on the last click, or are you guys using attribution for some of your optimizations, or attribution modeling, I would say?
So we don't get to choose. I mean, so we are buying on media, but then we're selling it to other people who have multiple campaigns running, and we've already alluded to the fact that this stuff isn't done in real time, and I feel pretty strongly that entire attribution model is completely broken. That there are very few people who really know what media drove what conversion. And the worst example of it, I think, is what has become incredibly popular is site retargeting, and people feel that's a fantastic way to get a great return. And what we think about that is there's all these other ways, and the hardest thing that you can possibly do is to get someone to come to your site and buy something, right? So once they've come to your site, converting them becomes much easier than getting them there in the first place, right? So you run campaigns all over the internet, and if you're on a last click attribution model, you run all these campaigns, people get to go there, and then whoever's doing your site retargeting campaign gets to go rebid on those people, gets them just before they buy, and they get the credit. but it doesn't make any sense at all. And so you need to have, and there are a few products on the marketplace, we believe strongly that anyone who's doing multi-channel digital marketing needs to have a professional attribution model. There are a few out there. We don't sell them. If you want to talk about it, I'll give you a few recommendations. But you need to be running with someone who's a professional about saying which of these impressions is worth more than these other impressions, or you'll never really know why you sold that widget in the first place.
We run with all the attribution models. You name it, we have clients who do that. We also run brand in a sizable format. And I think the reason it's not bigger is just education. I don't think there's any other reason than that. It's very easy to give somebody a DR budget because if you perform, there's unlimited budget. Brand is more of a touchy-feely decision, but with the data, with the audience reach, with the efficiency that you can do that's that multi-year trend that we're seeing. We're seeing those $10 premium placements. And even if I think back to the old days at Yahoo in 2005, how was media buying done, right? It was well, I want to take over sports, and they'll do a very integrated takeover. They'll have the Yahoo engineers code the page, so there's a specific experience when you come to the sports page. But there's always that run-of-network extension campaign, and usually the ratio is something like 1 to 2, 1 to 3, 1 to 4. That homepage or site takeover is usually a minority, and the other advertising around that is used to drive people to that page or extend that message. And I think that's completely open for real-time bidding. Having been on both sides of it, trying to fight against it, just to try to preserve some shareholder value, or now helping clients access that. I think if we have this panel every successive year, brand budgets into RTB are just going to grow, and I think it's going to be exponential. To touch on the attribution question, I completely agree with the comments made. I mean, I think they're all inferior. Last click, last view. I think the important thing for buyers to think about is who's doing the heavy lifting in your media buy. And so this ability for us, and we have to work with so many parties to do it, to get permission to do this, but we technically do it. We have all of that information on where your media buy went, and you all have access to that. If you just go and call up DoubleClick and download your log files, it's expensive in terms of processing the data, but you have every impression there. You can pull out a single user, look at the 100 impressions that were served to that user prior to conversion, and you'll figure out that a bunch of people served 20 impressions, and maybe one guy served 1 at the end, and they got the last view credit. Does that person deserve the full credit? I think most people would say no. You'll also find who's running odd sizes, like 180s by 150s, and just sneaking in below the fold. Maybe your user never even saw that ad, but yet that party got credit for it. So I think there's a huge opportunity. The visibility technology and press release that was just issued a few weeks back is huge, because saying that over half the people don't see the ads, I bet you half that credit is given to those people, right? So long ways to go in that, but the data's out there. Your ad server has the data.
So let's talk about that, the viewability and I guess the validation of real-time buying. What tools are out there to protect the advertiser, right? So brand safety, visibility on a page, actual placement. What do you guys use to validate the delivery of that ad?
I'll give my standard answer. We use them all. It's because our clients use them all. And I think those are important choices to make.
I think if we have this panel 1 year from now, you'll see that there's been a couple of people who we don't even know today who are releasing technology. And there was a press release just before this panel about ESPN using someone, that there'll be technology that will, so that it's already possible to know how big a window that the browser is and whether an ad is being shown in it. And it's just a question of time before there's enough technology put back in our hands to know whether the ad that we bought was actually within that visible window. And a year from now, we'll all be doing it. It's just technology is too relentless and too fast, and it has to happen. Because otherwise, to your point, people are getting credit for an ad that was just not part of the media mix.
Will this reduce the inventory? Will this reduce the number of ads on a page and make it, for example, I go to Amazon and I see 1 or 2 ads. So they've done some homework. So is it going to be like that?
Yeah, we just authored a white paper internally that we distributed within the agency, and I was asked to write on that subject. So I think what will happen is, yes, some publishers are going to lose big. So what are they going to do? They're going to redesign their page. So those ads are above the fold. And so I think for a short time, CPMs are going to go up in a concentrated area, the clean, well-lit environments that are above the fold. But then quickly, nobody wants to lose money. So pubs are going to readjust. There's going to be I can't predict what that will be, but I think there will be a leveling out. And the people who've been there that probably shouldn't have been receiving ad dollars, you'll probably see some people go away.
I'll put a stake in the ground, too, and say I think that over time, the number of ads on the page will absolutely come down. Because I think part of the viewability question is ad clutter. Like, most of our clients would never want to be on a page that has 15+ ads on it. So as soon as you have the ability to opt out of those types of pages and that content, then those pubs are going to lose. So if they can continue to make money with the people that do put up with that and are okay with aligning their clients' content with that amount of clutter, then great. But otherwise, I think we will see a shift towards fewer ads per page.
And I think it's going to force ad networks to evolve to some extent, because I think some ad networks, their model is basically sneaking in that last impression and getting credit for it. So, I mean, they're no longer going to be able to sneak it in below the fold and get an impression cookie in your browser and then take credit for that impression, especially if you're running campaigns like we do all the time on a CPA basis. So I'm, very much looking forward to viewable impressions being the new standard. But I think certain ad networks that we now know are no longer going to be around.
So not only will you be able to see whether the thing is viewable, but I bet you the same technology will allow you to know how many ads are on a page. And then, if we're bidding for an ad and there's a choice between 2 impressions and we're doing it in real time and one page has 1 ad on it, another page has 2, guess which one I'm going to bid more for? Like, that publisher will get more money for me for sure. And I don't think that there'll be any shortage of inventory. There is a ton of inventory out there. People have a lot of unsold inventory, and there's good unsold inventory that isn't getting enough business, and it will get more, so that the better players will get more money as a result of these developments.
I don't think it'll take a year either, because there's enough tools out there where we can already measure this kind of stuff. That I think it's only a matter of time before we're just able to opt in, opt out, and decide we're not going to buy this if we can measure it right now already.
Well, I think it comes down to whether or not you're going to have visibility on the URL level, right? Because, I mean, until you do that, you don't even know where your ad's even running necessarily. And so I think there's going to be a push towards transparency. You're going to have the premium well-lit publishers who are going to benefit because they're going to require transparency from your side. And if you're willing to say who you are bidding on it, I think you're going to be able to access that inventory. Otherwise, like all the crappy websites out there are going to have to start shrinking that inventory, because, I mean, those are the guys, or the premium guys who are hiding the URLs. Are like, you're not going to want to buy it because you don't know where your ad's going.
I mean, in a way, it takes care of itself, right? If you have good inventory, the higher the quality of your inventory, the more sensitive you are to maybe, I don't know, lower quality ads, if there is such a thing. But with the increased amount of bidding and with data, isn't the CPM going to go up so much, especially with visibility? If that drives out 30% of all the inventory, all of a sudden the CPMs are going to go up. So for you to be able to afford it, I think we've always seen that the people who can afford it the most usually have high quality ads. So I think that works all in our favor.
And I would the last thing I would say is I think the bigger trend towards viewability and less ad clutter, I think will also help facilitate the movement of more brand dollars into this space, because I think from what I've heard sort of out in the industry, the hesitation from some brands who do brand campaigns to moving towards real-time biddability in this kind of world. Hesitation is around how premium is this? Can I be above the fold? Those types of questions are still being asked. And I think the whole viewability, and you're only going to be running on content where there's 3 ads or less per page or whatever the case is, I think will help facilitate the shift of dollars, media dollars.
I'd love to just observe that you have a panel here of people who buy audiences basically on RTB, right? And we have just all said that media placement, old school media placement on particular publishers works best. And I can absolutely guarantee you from Magnetic's point of view, we definitely see as one of the major variables in what works in RTB, what site is it playing on and how, where is the ad? So, I think that's great news for all of the people who have suffered from the digital revolution, all of these big publishing sites who are not making enough money. This is going to help you tremendously.
Wow, great. Excellent, excellent. So I think you guys did.
Question in the back here.
Oh, other questions.
Don Scott from Media General. I applaud the move towards less clutter, in view, all that's very good. But look at the biggest place where brand advertising is happening on television. It is nothing if not clutter. We have hour-long shows that are 40 minutes. That's a lot of clutter. I grant that it occupies the screen, but to go back to something that I found very interesting, a long time ago they did a water pressure study in Los Angeles. And at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour, when all those big breaks came in with all those commercials, the water pressure dipped. So who's seeing the commercials? And why can't we get it over to digital?
Yeah, I think one thing I would say to that is it's not going to be like the be-all, end-all. It's not like the silver bullet fix. But I think having the opportunity to see is really where it matters, because you're wiping out all the stuff that you're potentially making decisions on, or like Ming mentioned, where you've got thousands of data points to process. A big chunk of those could be from impressions that were never even in someone's view. They didn't even have the opportunity to see. So I think that's where one of the benefits comes in.
I mean, the water flushing example, isn't that an example of, because our clients do their offline buying with our agency, right? And so just for one client, I got the entire TV plan for the next quarter. What's going to run where? I got the print plan. So we're focusing in on those DMAs where we're heavying up in offline media to further leverage the value of that and make it work with digital. But couldn't we run ads during those, in real time, during those 5-minute commercial breaks? That's something that wasn't possible before. But if you integrate all that data, you can do that now. So I bet you there's an equal number of people who don't have to go to the bathroom, but pulled out their iPad or their laptop and they're surfing around.
Those are not exclusive.
Joe Mandisi from MediaPost. It came up on an earlier panel. I'm surprised it hasn't come up here, but part of the real world is the creative that's being served at the time. And Victor, I know your platform has a dynamic creative optimization component. How important and how do you crack that, juxtaposing the right message in the real time with the right impression?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we do is look at a lot of campaign data from other similar advertisers and then put the data together, which, I mean, if you have a big enough client that's spending $1 million a month, you can just do that within a campaign. We deal with 20,000 advertisers spending, $1,000 a month, and in order to do any sort of real testing, RTB has enabled all of this because we can look at different campaigns, hold variables constant across campaigns, look at retailers that are targeting to females, and basically try to see if we change the color red, if that makes an impact. RTB enables you to do a lot more experimenting than you could before, partly because you can do it on a lot more sites, a lot cheaper, and you can make decisions a lot faster and change them real fast. I mean, basically in the old world when you did traditional media buying, I mean, you bought one site and you could probably change out the ad creative within that site, but you're not able to necessarily find the exact user segment that you were testing the first creative against, right? You wouldn't be able to find that female 35 to 50 again, or in enough quantity. But if you're buying on an audience basis, you can hold a lot more constant and that allow you to do a lot more creative testing, basically. So RTB, for us, has been a game changer because we can do things that we can never do before, which is important for smaller advertisers or advertisers that are sensitive to performance.
So
Yeah, we absolutely do that, and we'll show for an e-commerce site with 1,000 products on it or more. We'll show that exact product that the user saw, and we'll pay a very high price for that within the first 3 hours, say, and then a lower price at 6 hours, a lower price at 9. You go to 24 hours. If we've shown them 5 ads and they're not responding, maybe we show them another ad from that category or from that company. But DCO allows us to do that, and combined with the actual bidding, we can win those impressions at the right rate so that it converts on the back end.
Great. Hi, Joy from PubMatic. Jenna, this is specifically towards you and what you were talking about in terms of real-time buying today. Of what percentage of your media today would you say is bought on the real-time bidding market versus what are you going to see a year or 5 years from now?
I think for our agency in particular, around a quarter of our digital spend is done through some technology-driven, including real-time way. Obviously, we hope that grows over the course of the next 5 years, especially in line with some of the Forrester predictions that it'll kind of keep trending upward. But I think how fast the upward trend goes is going to be driven by a lot of what we're talking about today, like the viewability and the private exchanges and how those different things play out in the next few months.
And publisher adoption, obviously.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and hope this was fruitful in terms of real-time buying in the real world. Thank you.